Hey there, my name is Ye, which means whale in Tlingit. And this is my friend Du Zuni, which means friend in Tlingit. Hey Du Zuni, I live in Alaska, and I'm here to teach you a little about me and my kind. Orca whales are really popular among humans, but despite our popularity, humans still don't know that much about us. We can be broken up into three major groups: resident whales, transient whales, and offshore whales. These different groups of whales are not known to interact with each other, don't breed with each other, and technically could be considered different species of orca whale. There are innate behaviors that all three groups of orcas share, and there are also learned behaviors that vary between the different groups and also within each group. Before I say stuff about the differences between the different groups of orca whales, I would just like to point out one common behavior amongst us all. In fact, this behavior is common to all animals. It is nursing. When mammals are very young, we somehow know to nurse. This knowledge that we are born with allows us to survive. Without our mother's milk, we wouldn't be able to get the nutrients we need to grow and develop. Once I was strong and big enough to hunt for my own food, I stopped nursing. The kind of orcas that humans know most about happen to be the kind of orca I am, resident orcas. We live in pods and usually stay relatively close to shore. One example of a kind of resident orca is the southern resident whale, which I am. Three pods from the southern resident whales are the J, K, and L pods. I don't really hang out with anyone other than the whales in my pod, and the leader of my pod happens to be my grandmother. She is the oldest female in my pod, and we all look up to her. I have learned everything I know from my pod, including how to hunt and communicate. When I was younger, Du Zuni and I liked to fool around. Sometimes, though, we would misbehave, and my mother or other older members of my pod would correct us. Now I know how to be a responsible member of my pod, and I know that I have the social skills that will allow me to successfully find a mate and food. To communicate, we use echolocation. Because humans don't use echolocation, they are a little mystified as to exactly how it works. It would be pretty hard for me to explain, but I can tell you that each pod has a different signature call that they use to identify each other. I learned this call from the other members of my pod when I was really young, and I use it now to find members of my pod and identify other whales in the water. Another way that I use my echolocation is to find prey. When the sound waves bounce off things in the water, the way they come back to me allows me to know what is around me. With echolocation, I make sure that I'm eating the right food. Speaking of food, one thing you should know is that we southern resident orcas are very picky eaters. I learned from a very young age by watching the other members of my pod hunt that the kind of food to eat is Chinook or king salmon. Basically, that's all we eat. The only thing is, there have been some problems with our food sources lately because humans also like to eat king salmon. They also like to build things in the exact places where king salmon lay their eggs, making it harder for the salmon to be born, reproduce, and survive. Thankfully, humans are becoming more aware of their actions and have added a lot of regulations on salmon fishing. Luckily, not all orcas are as picky as we are. Transient orcas, which sometimes go a little further into the open ocean than resident orcas, also eat other mammals like seals. And offshore orcas are the really wild ones. They are so far out in the ocean that humans barely know anything about them. To be honest, I don't really know much about them either, because we live in such different places. Humans have seen, though, that offshore orcas eat sharks. They know this because the offshore orca's teeth get really worn down from chewing through a shark's tough skin. Pretty crazy if you ask me. Speaking of crazy, I heard once about this orca in captivity that apparently was swimming protectively around its trainer who happened to be pregnant. Humans think that maybe orcas can sense, through echolocation, not only the location and size of something around it, but the density of what makes up what's around it. This is in concurrence with the idea that echolocation helps orcas find where prey is and make sure they're eating the right prey. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye!